Captain Johan sat in the sterile command room of Eagle's Talon, his fingers tapping an unconscious rhythm against the metal table. The walls were lined with screens displaying shifting star charts, but his mind was elsewhere. He knew this mission wasn't going to be simple. It never was when it came to ancient, powerful prisoners. The hum of the ship's engines beneath him was a constant reminder that they were already on their way to the far reaches of the galaxy. The mission brief had been clear: bring back Zeros, the last of the Zorther. A species once feared by every major power in the galaxy, now reduced to myth after the mysterious collapse of their empire millennia ago. But Zeros wasn't just a prisoner, he was a legend, and his kind had been responsible for some of the most devastating wars ever fought. The Galactic Council was concerned. Earth's recent rise in influence had put it on a path to challenge the established order, and Zero's continued existence threatened the fragile peace that had been built over the last few centuries. The idea that a single human, Captain Johan, could deal with such a dangerous being was not just a testament to Earth's newfound power, it was also a deliberate statement to the galaxy. Humans weren't here to sit in the back row anymore. His first officer, Lieutenant Zara, stood nearby, reviewing mission details. Zara was a hardliner, a stickler for procedure, everything Johan wasn't. He respected her, though. Her loyalty was unshakable, her tactical genius, unquestionable. And right now, as the ship's sensors hummed with data feeds, she was the one keeping the details of this mission together. She'd been briefing him on their journey to the moon where Zeros was held, a facility so secure that only a handful of beings had ever seen its interior. The vault, as it was called, was a fortress built into the surface of a barren moon, buried deep under layers of rock and shrouded in electromagnetic fields designed to block all known forms of communication. It was an impossible task, but that was the point. The Council had assumed no one could infiltrate it. Except Captain Johan. "Everything checks out, Captain. We're approaching the system. The vault's sensors are offline. This is our window." Johan nodded without speaking. He'd studied the reports extensively, but the truth was, he wasn't here for a clean job. He wasn't here to follow the rules. If they were going to bring Zeros to Earth, it wasn't going to be by the book. There were too many unknowns, too many risks, and Johan wasn't the kind of leader to put his crew in harm's way without a few secrets of his own. Zara had her role, and he had his. The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone knew what was at stake. But no one spoke it aloud. The Eagle's Talon was Earth's finest ship, capable of fighting off hostile fleets, capable of surviving extreme conditions, and capable of taking on the impossible. But bringing Zeros to Earth? That was a different kind of gamble. The rest of the crew was ready for action, each one following orders without question. The mission wasn't just about retrieving a prisoner, it was about sending a message. Humans had always been seen as the underdogs, the wild card in a galaxy of calculated powers. But they were growing. They had tasted victory. They had tasted fear. Johan couldn't help but think back to the first time he'd encountered an alien in deep space, an encounter that had left an indelible mark on him. He'd learned quickly that the galaxy wasn't just full of strange and dangerous species, it was full of those who underestimated humanity. That was always Earth's advantage, they could be underestimated, ignored, written off. But then they turned the tide. Then they surprised everyone. It was exactly why they were sending Johan on this mission. His crew had fought in battles against overwhelming odds, and they had won. But a prisoner like Zeros, who had been a nightmare to civilizations far older than humanity, was a different kind of challenge. The mission wasn't about subduing Zeros, it was about keeping him alive long enough to get him back to Earth. Zara stepped closer, breaking his thoughts. "Captain, we've received an unexpected transmission from the vault." Johan raised an eyebrow. "From the vault? I thought their communications were down." "That's what we thought. But we've decoded it. It's a warning. From Zeros himself." Johan stood, the air around him suddenly charged. "A warning? From the prisoner? Impossible." The vault's security protocols were designed to ensure that no one, not even the prisoners, could send messages out. The fact that Zeros was able to communicate with them was both disturbing and intriguing. "What's he saying?" Johan asked, his voice low. Zara hesitated before reading the decoded transmission aloud. "He says, 'You think you can contain me? I am the last of the Zorther, and you will all fall. There are things you cannot imagine that I can do. Your species is nothing.'" Johan's expression didn't change. He'd expected something like this. Zeros wasn't just dangerous because of his physical abilities, he was dangerous because of his mind. His arrogance, his belief in his superiority, it was what had made the Zorther a galactic threat. "Let me guess," Johan said, a thin smile tugging at his lips. "We're not supposed to take him seriously?" "No," Zara said, her tone serious. "But the message is clear. He doesn't want to be brought back to Earth. He's threatening us." Johan shook his head. "Threatening us? That's laughable. Tell me this, how many times have we heard that before, Zara? How many times have we heard that humans are nothing, that we're weak, that we're easy prey?" "Too many," Zara replied. "But this time it's different, Captain. This is Zeros." Johan turned to face the viewport, his eyes locking on the distant moon where the vault sat, hidden beneath its icy surface. A few 100,000 miles away, and yet, it felt like the beginning of something larger. Something more dangerous. "We'll see," Johan said. "We'll see if he's as powerful as they say. But make no mistake, this mission isn't about bringing him in quietly. It's about proving a point to the galaxy." Zara's eyes narrowed. She knew exactly what Johan meant. It wasn't just about Zeros anymore. It was about Earth. It was about humanity's place in the galaxy. They had survived impossible odds before. They would do it again. And they would bring Zeros back to Earth, not as a prisoner, but as a symbol. Johan smiled to himself. The galaxy hadn't seen anything yet. The vault loomed ahead, a shadowy mass buried beneath the surface of a barren moon. The Eagle's Talon had slipped through its outer defenses undetected, thanks to Johan's insistence on utilizing human-engineered cloaking systems that, ironically, the Galactic Council had overlooked in their obsession with their own superior technology. The ship's sleek frame moved with purpose, each maneuver calculated to the millimeter. Johan leaned over the console, observing the readouts. Their infiltration had gone smoothly so far, but the silence felt unnatural. The vault was supposed to be impenetrable, yet here they were, bypassing its outermost defenses with unnerving ease. It wasn't arrogance that made Johan uneasy, it was the absence of resistance. Too quiet. Too smooth. His instincts screamed at him that something was wrong. "Zara, status on the interior locks," Johan said. Lieutenant Zara's fingers flew across her console. "We've overridden the first 2 layers of security. Final lock disengagement in 30 seconds. Johan watched as the countdown ticked down on the screen. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, even though the vault scanners had shown no active personnel. Automated defenses were still online, but nothing had moved to intercept them. It didn't add up. Either they were exceedingly lucky, or someone wanted them to succeed. The final lock disengaged with a metallic thud. A moment later, the team boarded the dimly lit corridor that led to Zeros' containment chamber. The stale air and faint hum of machinery surrounded them as they moved deeper into the facility. Johan's eyes scanned every corner, every shadow, his hand resting on the grip of his sidearm. His team followed closely, their movements silent, weapons at the ready. The chamber door was massive, reinforced with layers of alloy that could withstand direct bombardment. Johan nodded to Zara, who began decrypting the final access code. The seconds dragged on, each one amplifying the tension in the room. Finally, the door groaned open, revealing a single figure suspended within a containment field. Zeros. The alien was unlike anything Johan had ever seen. He was tall, his physique gaunt but imposing, with sharp features that seemed to cut through the dim light. His eyes, glowing faintly, locked onto Johan the moment the containment field began to deactivate. Even restrained, there was an air of dominance about him, a sense that he was merely tolerating their presence. Johan stepped forward, meeting the alien's gaze. "Zeros," he said, his voice steady. "I'm Captain Johan of the Eagle's Talon. You're coming with us." Zeros didn't respond at first, his eyes narrowing as he studied Johan. Then, with a voice that was both gravelly and resonant, he spoke. "A human," he said, almost amused. "How quaint. They sent a child of a fledgling race to escort me. Do you even know who I am, Captain?" "I know enough," Johan replied. "I know you've been locked away here for centuries. I know you're dangerous. And I know the Galactic Council wants you on Earth. That's all I need to know." Zero smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of his lips. "You don't understand the game you're playing, Captain. The Council doesn't want me in prison, they want me silenced. There are truths I carry that they fear, truths that could shatter the fragile peace they cling to so desperately." Johan remained unfazed. He wasn't here for philosophical debates or cryptic warnings. His job was simple: get Zeros to Earth. "You can tell your truths to the Council when we get there. For now, your options are limited." Zeros laughed softly, the sound reverberating through the chamber. "Limited? Captain, you've already lost control of this mission. You just don't realize it yet." Before Johan could respond, the chamber lights flickered, and an alert blared through the vault's corridors. The sound was deafening, a series of sharp, mechanical tones signaling an impending threat. Zara's voice cut through the chaos. "Captain, we've got incoming, multiple energy signatures closing in fast. They're bypassing the outer defenses." Johan didn't need to ask who. The timing was too precise. Someone had been waiting for this moment, and now they were here to collect the prize. "Get Zeros secured and back to the ship," he ordered. The containment field dissipated fully, and Zeros stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate. Two guards moved to restrain him, but he didn't resist. Instead, he turned to Johan, a smirk playing on his lips. "I warned you, Captain. The game is bigger than you." Johan ignored him, focusing on the immediate threat. The vault's corridors were suddenly alive with motion as hostile forces began to breach the facility. The attackers weren't Council forces, they were something else, a ragtag but deadly group armed with advanced weaponry and technology. Johan recognized the signs: mercenaries. As they moved through the facility, Johan's team engaged in skirmishes with the attackers. The mercenaries were relentless, their tactics sharp and efficient. They weren't just here to kill, they were here to capture Zeros. Johan's suspicions solidified. The Council's intentions hadn't been entirely honest, and now they were paying the price for it. Zeros, for his part, walked calmly through the chaos, unflinching as bolts of energy zipped past him. Johan kept a close eye on him, half expecting the alien to try something, but Zeros seemed content to let the humans fight his battle for now. It was unsettling. They reached the extraction point, a narrow access tunnel that led back to the Eagle's Talon. Johan's crew had managed to hold off the attackers long enough to secure their escape route, but it was clear they were running out of time. Zara tapped her communicator, signaling the ship. "We're ready for extraction. Prepare for launch." Johan turned to Zeros, who stood silently, his expression unreadable. "You'd better be worth all this trouble," Johan muttered. Zeros' eyes glimmered with something unreadable: amusement, perhaps, or maybe pity. "Oh, Captain," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "You have no idea what you've set in motion." The words lingered in Johan's mind as they boarded the ship. As the Eagle's Talon began its ascent, breaking free from the moon's surface, Johan knew the hardest part of the mission was yet to come. The galaxy wasn't going to let Zeros go without a fight. The chamber door opened with a hiss, revealing a vast, cold expanse. A single figure stood at the far end, shackled by massive, glowing restraints. Zeros. The last of the Zorther, an ancient and imposing presence even in captivity. He was lean, his skin a dull silver gray, his eyes glowing faintly with an unnatural light. His hands were bound, but the way he stood, erect, unyielding, spoke volumes of his power. Johan didn't feel the rush of triumph he expected. He had known of Zeros's reputation, the destruction his kind had caused. But standing there, face to face with this prisoner, Johan could feel a weight in the air that was almost suffocating. This wasn't just any prisoner. This was a force of nature. A creature whose people had ruled the galaxy before humanity had even learned how to walk upright. "You came," Zeros said, his voice smooth and eerily calm. It was almost as if he had been expecting them. Johan didn't respond immediately. He took a step forward, his gaze never leaving the alien. His mind raced. He had planned for this moment, the negotiations, the extraction. But there was a sharp edge to the situation now that he hadn't accounted for. Zeros wasn't begging for release. He wasn't pleading for mercy. Instead, he was watching them with the detached curiosity of someone observing ants. "Do you know why we're here?" Johan finally asked, his voice low but steady. Zeros's lips curled into a faint smile, the glow in his eyes intensifying for a brief moment. "I know why you're here, human. You've come to collect me, yes? To take me to your planet." The words stung, though Johan wasn't sure why. It wasn't fear, he had faced far worse odds and enemies in the past. It was something else, something buried deep beneath the surface. He had expected defiance, perhaps even anger. But Zeros seemed strangely indifferent to his fate. "The Council believes you're a threat," Johan said, stepping closer. "That you still have the potential to unleash chaos, just as your people did before." Zeros chuckled softly. "The Council is wise to fear me. But the true question is, why do you not fear me, Captain Johan?" The words hit like a physical blow. For a moment, Johan felt the weight of Zeros's gaze, the heavy pull of his ancient consciousness. It was as if the alien was peeling away the layers of his thoughts, exposing him. But just as quickly as the sensation came, it vanished. Zeros was silent again, watching. Ready to move out, Zara's voice broke through the tension, a little too loudly. She sounded uncomfortable, but she was good at hiding it. Johan shifted his focus back to her, nodding once. "We're getting him back to Earth," Johan said, his voice cold, more certain now. There was no room for doubt. This mission wasn't about Zeros. It was about proving something much larger. Proving that humanity wasn't to be underestimated. The restraints around Zeros flickered, then powered down, disengaging with a soft electrical hum. The alien didn't make a move to break free, he simply stepped forward, his long strides deliberate, measured. He was still watching them, his presence undeniable. His every movement seemed calculated, as though he were preparing for something, but what? The team was tense as they moved toward the exit. Johan led the way, feeling an inexplicable chill settle over him. Something had changed. The moment they had crossed into the vault's interior, everything had felt too easy. Too perfect. There had been no resistance. No alarms. No complications. As they made their way back toward the ship, Johan couldn't help but feel that they weren't leaving with just a prisoner. There was something else coming. Something bigger. His gut churned with the realization that they might have made a grave mistake by underestimating Zeros. Behind him, Zara's voice broke the silence again. "Captain, the ship is in position. We can leave at any time." Johan didn't answer immediately. His eyes darted around, scanning the surroundings. But nothing had changed. It was still just the empty corridor leading them back to the ship, the faint hum of the vault's machines a constant background noise. The uneasy feeling gnawed at him, intensifying with every step. They were walking into a trap. But who had said it? Zeros's voice, soft but laced with undeniable power, answered the question before Johan could form it in his mind. "You'll find it difficult to leave, Captain. Your ship, your crew, your planet. All will be mine." The words echoed in Johan's mind, an unsettling promise that seemed to carry with it an ancient weight. It was as if Zeros knew something that Johan didn't. Something about the Eagle's Talon and its journey back to Earth that wasn't what it seemed. Johan's heart raced as he moved faster, his crew closing ranks behind him. This mission had never been about bringing a prisoner to Earth. It was never going to be that simple. It was a game. A game where Zeros was always one step ahead. By the time they reached the Eagle's talon, the realization hit. It wasn't Earth that Zeros wanted. It was something far more dangerous. Something more significant than any of them could understand. And now, Johan's only choice was to survive it. Johan's grip tightened around the handle of his sidearm. The way Zeros spoke, it was as if he already knew what was going to happen. Johan was used to being in control, used to taking the reins, but this was unsettling. He'd expected resistance, maybe defiance, but the calm acceptance in Zeros' voice felt wrong. Zara, ever the pragmatist, stepped forward. Enough games, Zeros. We're here to take you back to Earth. There's no escape. Zeros chuckled, the sound deep and reverberating, as though it came from some ancient place far beyond the reaches of the galaxy. Escape? You misunderstand. You're not the ones in control. I've been waiting for this. The words hit Johan harder than he wanted to admit. He had expected to outsmart the system, to outmaneuver the ancient alien. But now, it was clear, Zeros wasn't just a prisoner. He was a part of something far bigger than the mission they had come to fulfill. Explain, Johan ordered, the edge of authority creeping into his tone. Zeros tilted his head slightly, as if pondering the human's request. You think you can just take me to your world and parade me as some trophy of conquest. But your Earth, your species, are not what you think you are. The silence in the room thickened. Johan didn't flinch, but his mind was working at full speed. The prisoner wasn't just talking about escape. He was talking about something deeper, something that had to do with Earth itself. You're wrong, Zara spat, her hand hovering near her weapon. We're not here to be lectured by some broken relic. Zeros' eyes locked with hers, and there was a dangerous gleam in his gaze. You think your world is some new power, that your kind is just beginning to emerge into the galaxy's grand tapestry. But you've always been here. You always have been. Johan's brow furrowed. What are you talking about? Zeros' smile widened, revealing teeth sharper than any human's. You want to take me to Earth, yes? But what if I told you that Earth has been my prison as much as it's been yours? The galaxy is not what you think it is. Humanity's rise, it wasn't some accident. It was orchestrated. The weight of the words landed heavily in the room. Zara took a step back, her eyes flickering between Johan and Zeros. The captain's mind raced as the alien continued to speak. You're nothing more than a tool, Zeros said, his voice growing more intense. A weapon designed to tip the balance of power. Earth isn't a backwater world. It's a crucible, a forge. And I'm the reason you're here. Johan's heart skipped a beat, but he maintained his composure. You're lying. You're just trying to play us. Zeros shook his head slowly. I was the architect of Azorther's rise. I watched empires burn, civilizations crumble beneath my design. But the true power, the true purpose, was always Earth. You were always meant to ascend. You were always meant to surpass us. Johan's breath caught in his throat. He had always thought of humanity as an underdog, a species that had fought tooth and nail for its place in the galaxy. But Zeros' words were beginning to twist everything he thought he knew. The rise of Earth as a power wasn't a fluke. It was intentional. Planned. And Zeros had been the one pulling the strings. Why? Johan asked, his voice barely a whisper. The alien's eyes burned with an ancient fire. Because the Zorther were never meant to win. We were never meant to dominate. The true power was always with you, human. And now, you will claim it. You will stand above the stars and rule what we could not. Johan's thoughts scrambled for answers, for any explanation that made sense. What does that mean for Earth? For us? Zeros' laugh was low and unsettling. It means you are not just survivors. You are the inheritors. The galaxy has always been your domain. The war that wiped out the Zorther? It was a failed attempt to stop your rise, a futile effort to delay what was always inevitable. Johan staggered back, his mind trying to process the enormity of Zeros's words. You plan this? For humanity to take over the galaxy? Zeros's grin widened, cruel and knowing. Not just take over. Surpass. What the Zorther could never accomplish, you will. But only if you understand who you are. Only if you embrace your true purpose. The implications of the conversation crashed down on Johan like a tidal wave. The alien, the so-called prisoner, had been orchestrating humanity's ascension from the shadows. But for what purpose? What did he want in return? Johan's instincts were telling him that he wasn't hearing the full truth, that there was something far darker hidden beneath Zeros's cryptic revelations. Why Earth? Why now? Johan asked, his voice tight. Zeros leaned forward, his eyes never leaving Johan's. Because your time has come. But remember, Captain, some powers are too dangerous to be unleashed. The truth is a weapon, just as much as any army. And you've just uncovered the first layer. But the deeper you go, the more you'll understand. And by then, it will be too late. Johan's mind was spinning. This wasn't just a mission anymore. It wasn't just about bringing back a prisoner to Earth. The galaxy wasn't what he thought it was. Humanity wasn't just on the rise, they were part of something far greater, something ancient, and something terrifying. The real question wasn't just whether he could bring Zeros back. The real question was whether Earth could survive the truth that the alien had just unleashed.